you make up all these different stories about this character, where he's from or she's from, what she does or he does as a profession, what they like, what color they like, what's their favorite dish, and all that sort of thing. That as a performer, once you have all those informations, it's a layer to your storytelling.
The glitz and glam is the fame, but it's the work backstage that makes the game. I'm Crystel and Vonne, your host. Come with me behind the lens and watch their stories unfold. Our next guest is a creative artist who's explored the performing arts industry through theatre. He's toured around the world performing different plays, scripts, and now he's a vocal coach for many arts students, helping them achieve and improve their skills so that they too can achieve their dreams in the industry. Please welcome on Behind the Lens, Marcus Rivera. Welcome to Behind the Lens. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And let's go right back to where everything started. Tell us a little bit about how your childhood was. Were you always creative as a kid?
Oh my God, already. Well, both my parents are from Pampanga, but I was born in Manila, so I grew up in Manila right up until I was about seven, 8, and then we migrated to Australia. My mom is a school teacher. She's always been a school teacher. She was actually my elementary school teacher. Over at General Vicente Lim Elementary School. Dad is a jack of all trades, but he comes from a farming family, like most Pampangueños do. So he was tilling the land. He was they were tilling, I think, anything from sugarcane to rice to veggies and all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
Did you learn any of their skills?
I've always loved gardening. I've always loved working with my hands, working with the soil. Planting, all that sort of stuff, gardening. Even when we were at Kensington in a 2-bedroom apartment, I always had plants in pots.
It's nice.
In a tiny balcony, and I had a pot of ginger, which we harvested every year, which was great. Basil, herbs, and lemongrass.
It's nice having that
in this tiny little balcony. So no, it's good. It refreshes you.
It really does. Do you find it therapeutic in a way?
It's very therapeutic.
Yeah, that's good. All right, so how did you get into the creative side? Was your mom the creative person?
Both mom and dad would always argue where I got the musical genes from, and dad's always adamant it was his side of the family. But mom's side of the family are very musical. They're all professionals, either in the teaching or medical or nurse. But they always play the piano or sing. A lot of mom's cousins in the US, they're all in the medical profession, but they play the piano quite proficiently.
So it runs in the family. And somehow you ended up with that interest, you're saying?
Well, both mom and dad right now belong in a church choir. And it's the parish church that I grew up at, and it's near our place. So they've always been involved in church and everything. So they're heavily involved in the choir over there as well. And every year I join them for the midnight mass, singing for them as well. But as far as I can remember, I've always been doing theatre, poetry reading, singing. When I was in primary school, Mom would always coach students, for the declamation, one of those declamation competition that they have between schools in Manila, where it's like balentasan, that's what it is. Balagtasan.
Yeah.
So she would coach. She would coach my classmates. She would coach her students, but never me.
Oh, why?
All right, never me.
How come?
And to this day, I keep asking, why didn't you pick me when when you knew I had musical or theatrical inclinations? And she said, but Marcus, you always had the tiniest voice.
Oh, really?
She goes, you had this tiny voice that just sounded so soft, and I couldn't work with it. And even though I wanted you to do this and that and do I was very shy. I was a very shy kid.
That might have also been a factor.
Yeah.
To the tiny voice that she's referring to.
Tiny voice, very shy. I didn't come out of my shell until I was probably in my late teens, early 20s. So, but I did the bandurria class in primary. I did the singing, but never did solo singing when I was a kid. But it was always there. I mean, it was always something I did as a kid. I would learn a song and Mum would hear it and she would go, oh, why don't you sing to your auntie, or why don't you sing? And I would always not. I would always run back to my room and just go, no, I don't want to do it. And then I'd be, I'll be sneaking back out in the hallway and then singing in the hallway by myself. Kind of singing to.
But
I
then
was
they would
that shy.
Oh.
Absolutely.
What got you out of your shell?
I mean, I did the usual route of doing lessons. When I was 16, I started doing voice lessons.
Yeah.
And at the time we were living out at St. John's Park, and then I saw someone out at Liverpool doing singing lessons, and I did the usual, dance classes and all that. But that didn't come until much later, when a friend of mine, Cameron, who I grew up with, we used to. I'm jumping from one thing.
That's okay.
We grew up together. So from St. John's Park, we moved to Edenso Park. His family and my family always hung out together every weekend.
Yeah.
And I met him when we went to Busby High School. And then we became buddies. He was in year 6. I was in year 8. And it was funny because when I met him, we were at the bus stop where the school, the school bus would pick us up.
Yeah.
And take us to school, and he's Chinese Filipino, and I can remember clear as day. He had this tightest perm. This was back in the 80s. Tightest perm, and I said. And I turned around to because I'm with my brother and my sister, that we went to the same school. And I said, tingnan mo yung anong yun, yung asyanong yun, kulit na kulit yun, parang ano, parang ita. I mean, it's terrible to say that these days, but it's one of the most, wonderful indigenous tribe in the Philippines, and they have the tightest curls. Mm-hmm. And he turned around and said to me, sino tinatawag mong ita? Turned out he was Filipino.
He understood
so
you.
I was absolutely mortified. I was like, I'm sorry. So because he's Chinese Filipino, and then since then we became friends.
So was he someone that got you out of your shell?
No, he was someone who, every weekend, his family, my family, and a few other family would get together and just have, your usual Filipino Australian family. They would just get together and eat all day, sing karaoke. And Cameron's dad, he used to sing a lot, and he was a great Tom Jones impersonator, Elvis, the usual repertoire for his generation. And Cameron would be singing exactly the same repertoire. So, and I'd be singing along to it, and I'd know some of them. So that's how we bonded. We bonded over singing karaoke, eating mulberries. So we did everything together. basically. And we actually met Tita Daisy together because this was back in when was this now? When Miss Saigon was happening back in the 90s. We met Tita Daisy, Cameron and I, because there was a call out to the Filipino Australian community for musical talent, for singers and actors, because when Miss Saigon came here and it eventually ran for I think over 2 years at the Capitol Theatre.
Wow.
This was back in 1990, 1994. 94, 95, we probably weren't even born then. 94, 95, there was a call out to a whole lot of Filipino Australian singers and actors. And because Cameron and I were kind of singing, but by this time we were being friends for many years, and we were singing every weekend and getting into classes at City Dance Company. We would travel out to the city, and before that happened, we were actually part of Dula Ang Bayan City, which was run by Felino Doloso was one of the members, and if you know Chi's partner, Ducky, he was one of, and Lalen, his sister, was one of the founding members of Dula Ang Bayan TV, and we would rehearse out of Pirisham. So we would travel all the way from Whoop Whoop to Pirisham in the city and do that every weekend. It was fun. It was great. We didn't do a production. We just all I remember was we were rehearsing every weekend. We were shopping scripts every weekend. But never really did a play. Never really did a play. But
would you say it helped you?
Yeah. I think that was a training ground for me as part of the Dula Ang Bayan City DBS group. And I knew Elmer Cruz, Ducky, Chi's partner, because at the time he was the youth coordinator of Bonnery Youth Center. It's all coming back to me now. It's all coming back. He was the youth coordinator of Bonnery Youth Center. So they used to invite a whole lot of theater practitioners from Manila to organize some workshops with us, and that was part of Dula Ang Bayan City, which was my training run and Cameron's. So we were doing that for a few years, and then when the call out for Filipino, Australian, Asian actors and singers in general for the upcoming production of Miss Saigon came out, we were semi-ready to tackle this next level of our profession. So that's how we met Tita Daisy, because we would go, because during that time Tita Daisy is the mother, matriarch of the Monty sisters, Teresa Monty, Rosemary, and Rowan Monty, who was the first Filipino Australian Kim that played that role in West End. And at the time she was actually over in West End playing the role of Kim in Miss Saigon when the call out. So Cameron and I met Tita Daisy.
Yeah.
When there was a call out for Asian talents for the upcoming production of Miss Saigon, and she started doing workshops at her place back when they were living in Vaucluse at Diamond Crescent. I remember it because I was the designated driver. I had my license. Cameron didn't have his license, so I was driving everywhere with him. And every week we would go to her place, workshop a song, and that's where I met Nanette Ursua, Dex Villahermosa, and a few of the other talents that, Rowan's sister, was there as well. She was, God, I think she would have been about 16. And all I can remember was her singing "Movie" in my mind, and this 16-year-old was trying to conjure up all these emotions that a 16-year-old didn't understand. But Tita Daisy was like that. She would actually wrestle you into feeling something, and if something didn't work, she would go, "Anak, hindi lumalabas ang balahibo ko rito sa lirik," which is like, I'm not getting any goosebumps when you're doing this song. So it was like that. It was that kind of training that we got with Tita Daisy. So I'm thankful to her for doing those workshops and helping us.
Would you say it was important to feel? Because you said that she was really stressing that part of the performance.
I mean, during that time in my life, I was very technical, and I was with singing because I just started taking lessons, and I was, I would look at something, I would look at a song, and I would approach it from a technical point of view, not from an emotional kind of connection point of view. I mean, I didn't bother with the lyrics back then. As long as I sang the notes right, as long as I did a clean legato line, as my teacher would say, legato, molto legato. So I was preoccupied with making sure that it sounded right, rather than feeling what the song was about. And I think it was Tita Daisy that actually, that actually brought that out of me and said, "Anak, you need to approach it from an emotional point of view. You need to get into the character of the person singing this song." And during that time, there was a Miss Saigon school as well. There's so many things happening. It's very hard to put it in a little interview. So we were doing the workshop with Tita Daisy, and there was a Miss Saigon school as well for a lot of the talents that got through during the audition. So we were doing, it was like a training ground that Cameron McIntosh set up for the production that he was going to put on of Miss Saigon, the following year. So the preparation was a long time. It was like over 12 months.
Oh, wow.
So we auditioned, we got through, and then you did the Miss Saigon school, and then you audition again just to see where how you're tracking along with your singing, with your acting, with your dancing, because as a lot of Filipinos would know, they've seen Miss Saigon with various different actors. You say Miss Saigon, people go, yeah, I know that show. It's quite an intense, physically, emotionally, and it's a very intense, because it talks about the Vietnam War, and it talks about these two lovebirds. One is Kim, who comes from Saigon, and Chris, who is an American. Totally different cultures clashing and coming together. And in amongst all that, you have the engineer, who is the pimp, who engineers everything, and make sure that a lot of his pieces are in. It's like playing chess. A lot of his pieces are in proper position, so he can actually get to his dream. But anyway, back to the storytelling. There was a Miss Saigon school. There was Tita Daisy, and that was one of my treasured memory. As an actor, as a student, and as a Filipino Australian, because before all of that, I wasn't involved with any of I was just, I think I could have been an accountant or an architect or something like that in my
So it was like a turning point for you.
So it was like the point where it was a light bulb moment for me. It was like, this is something I want to do for, as a career, as a profession. So after that, I mean, I didn't get into didn't get into the production, but I did the school, which was wonderful. It was a training ground for me as a as a singer, as an actor, and as a dancer. So the production happened. I kept up with my singing, with my dancing, and acting and all that, and I met a lot of the cast, and most of them are were Filipinos from Manila, who had done the show before, because it was very hard for Cameron to find talent at the time here in I mean it's changed now. Back in the day, I would go to a casting, and I would be the only Asian, who would.
How did that feel for you?
It was weird. It was like, am I in the right am I in the right profession? Because I would just turn up, and everyone's like, everyone's non-ethnic, and when you talk about ethnic in Australia back in the day, it's either the Asians, the Greeks, or the Italians. But you never see Afro-American, you never see African, you never see Indians, you never see Southeast Asians, and any other Asian, because it wasn't a profession for a lot of ethnics back then. So the diversity was just, it was a stark difference to how it is now. I mean, it's a lot better with a lot of different representations, because that's what Australia is. It's a multicultural. It's a part of different cultures.
Mm-hmm. Did that affect you in any way? In your performance or preparation at all?
Whether it's by sheer stupidity or perseverance, I don't know. But I stuck to it, and I kept up with it. I mean, I started at the conservatorium. I went to the Australian Institute of Music, and did theatre, music theatre. And then after I graduated, my first gig was a season of Sweeney Todd, Stephen Sondheim with Queensland Opera. Again, I turned up to the audition. I was the only, and the audition was in Brisbane, and I was the only Asian. That at the time, it felt like tokenism. It was I was the Asian token for the production. But you know what? It was still, I had fun. It was great. A lot of those people that I sang with in that production, in that company, are still friends of mine.
That's good.
And that's the thing about theatre. It's you meet people, you meet different people, you do different productions, and you form a bond with a lot of them, and friendship with a few of them, and you're friends for life. Yeah.
What would you say that's your favorite part about being in theatre?
Well, that's one of the things that I love. It's meeting different people and forming bonds and friendships with different people from various productions and various places. Yeah. But is it one of my favorites? Yes, it's one of my favorites. Apart from playing make believe and putting on a show and taking on a role.
What made you fall in love with doing theatre? You said it was like a light bulb moment. What about it?
I think it's for me, it's getting lost in the storytelling of it. It's getting lost in the character that I'm playing. It's singing the song. I don't know, because whenever I perform it, it's like everything becomes a blur. It's a cliche. It's a cliche thing that most performers do. It's like I get into this space and it feels like everything doesn't. There's this wonderful frame with Helen Mirren, and she goes. There was it was a filming shot, and she had the makeup artist, she had the hair person, and the crew, fussing over her, and she goes, now, as a performer, you cut all of this out, and the only thing that's important is between you and that point in the camera. And I thought, yes, well, that is basically what performing is. It's cutting out all of this, cutting out what's happening around you, which is slightly different. This is my teacher hat. It's blinking now. It's my teacher hat. I'm donning on my teacher hat now because it's a totally different medium. Theater and film acting is slightly different, but performance is technically basically that. It's getting caught up with a character, with the storytelling, with with the song you're singing, and if you're so grounded and so into the character, you basically forget everything else.
How does it feel when you get into that kind of space?
It's a magical thing. It's a magic. Again, it's it's a cliche. it's like it's magical.
Do you enjoy that kind of feeling when you get into that space of everything's just blurred and you're in someone else's shoes?
No, it's once you're in that character, and as an actor, you do the preparation, you do the character profile.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from the songs that you're singing, if you're doing musical theater, you basically research about the character, and if it's someone, if the storytelling is based on someone that is alive or dead, it's based on an actual person, you do your research about them. But if you don't, that's the easy part. If you don't, you make up all these different stories about this character, where he's from or she's from, what she does or he does as a profession, what they like, what color they like, what's their favorite dish, and all that sort of thing. That as a performer, once you have all those informations, it's a layer to your storytelling, and and if you have a lot of those happening in your performance, it's like a well. The deeper you go into the well, because of these layers, the harder it is to go back up.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you only have 2 layers, you go back up, and then Marcus comes up again, or Crystel comes up again. But if you have all these multi-tiered layers of information about a character you're playing, you have no time. You have no other time. It's what they call breaking out of your character. When someone comments about a performance and they go, oh, they kept breaking out of their character, it is because they haven't done the background story to that character. They haven't worked out the multi-layers of information about that character, that when they break out of their performance or their role, because they don't have anything else to play with. Mm-hmm. Do you understand?
They don't have
anything else to process as that character.
They don't have enough information.
Exactly. So once you do that and you've done everything right, you've learned your song, you've learned the notes, you've learned how you're going to, you've mapped out the emotional journey in that song. Once you've done all of that, it then becomes fun, because you just take on this role that you play in 2.5 hours, or however long that performance is. So that's the fun part for me. It's when they say I get lost in that character, it is because of all of those information that you've researched about your character in the role.
Because you really did get lost in that
Yeah,
character.
because you did get lost in that character. You had a lot to play with,
Mm-hmm.
as an actor or as a singer, Because if you don't have a lot to play with, you would come out as Marcus or Crystel.
As
or
as your real identity,
Exactly.
essentially.
Because once it becomes awkward, you tend, and it's a natural thing. It's an instinctive thing for humans to do. They revert back to their old bags of tricks or to what they think is going to work, and they revert back to to their basket of tricks. Me as Marcus, for example. But
Did you ever struggle with it? Getting into character, did you ever struggle with that?
I think not if you do the work. Not if you do the work. You only struggle if you don't do your research and if you don't do the pre-production work, and that's where rehearsals
Matter so much.
matter, because a lot of the testing and because you that's what rehearsal is basically. You test things if it works. You test a joke, for example, if it lands well with the director or your cast. If they laugh hard, and then great, I'll remember that. And sometimes you remember it and it doesn't land quite as well as last time. Then you kind of hone and change your tactic a little bit, or change a certain stress on something. You kind of test it. That's what rehearsals are there for, is testing. So come opening night, it's there, it's ready, it's done, and all you have to do is perform it. And again, it takes a few weeks for you to get used to performing it and be comfortable with it, that you're comfortable with the set, you're comfortable with the with your co-stars, your cast, and everything else. It takes another week, for you to get used to that. So your real performance really doesn't happen until probably a month into opening night. Someone said that. Who said that? One of the Hollywood actors. And I agree with I think it was a woman that said, I can't remember who it was, but I agree with that. A lot of the technical work happens in rehearsals. Make sure that everything is technically right, singing wise, performing wise. That you just work on that, and then the magic happens post opening night, because that is the time when you start getting used to everything else and finding different things about the character and about the storytelling. Because what I would do tonight if I was performing would be different tomorrow, because it's a different audience, it's a different dynamic, it's a different energy, it's a different night. Maybe tonight I ate something spicy and it's bugging me. It's one of the layers that I have to deal with as an actor, and I could probably use that in my performance. I don't eat something spicy when I perform, or anything that would affect me.
Let's talk about your most difficult challenge that you've had to overcome, and how do you do it?
My most difficult challenge. Well, I guess I've always had problems writing, even when I was at uni. That for me, essay writing was just the most cumbersome thing. It was like, I don't mind doing the research, I don't mind doing reading up on the topic, but having to form sentences and structure and then make sure that it has academic backing and all that sort of stuff. It's like it's really hard. But having said that, because during the lockdown in March, when everything closed up, I've had to do a bit of writing, because I've started podcasting, and I've started and it was born out of a lot of the questions that I was getting as a teacher, from a lot of my students, and what is diaphragmatic breathing, what is subglottic pressure, and and how do you sustain a long legato line? So that I've started podcasting and actually putting a lot of what I know and a lot of my experience into that, but it required writing and
Structuring.
and structuring, storytelling, start, middle, finish, all that sort of stuff. Inciting incident. Is there a question or is there a problem that I need to solve? And then how am I going to solve that? The call to action.
So much to consider.
So much to consider. When I was writing it's good in a way because when I was writing a lot of my shows, I was working with one of my coaches, Andrew Davidson, who is now a teacher out in the UK. Moved over there and he's now a music teacher. But it's good that I bump into people like this, writers, script writers, coaches, and you collaborate with them, which is a wonderful thing. And as a writer, and I work with Michelle as well, because her background is journalism, and she's an editor in chief, and that's basically what she does 24/7. So I work with her, I collaborate with her.
She helps you.
Well, on the upcoming ebook that I am writing as well.
So you're having to overcome that thing that
Well,
you've been kind of ignoring or didn't really enjoy doing.
I mean, I still don't enjoy writing. It's not the writing so much, it's the starting writing that's a bit of I'm an avid procrastinator. I'm a professional when it comes to procrastinating and writing, starting writing. But once I start writing, again, you go into the zone. People talk about, creative people talk about zones, whether you're a beauty queen, a writer, a hairstylist, even a rally driver, they get into the zone as well. It's
another space.
Well, it's that space of concentration, I guess. Because once you get into that zone and you start writing or you start doing something, and it's the same with my performance as well. I get into that zone and
Everything's
everything's a blur.
Yeah. It's another space that you dive
just
into.
another space, but I wish I know that space and I know how to get into that space
Quicker.
a lot quicker.
Let's talk about your career so far. Is there anything that you would change? If so, why?
Is there anything that I would change? I am very, very pragmatic when it comes to tackling projects and things. I want everything, all my ducks in line and done properly or done a certain way. And people comment about this, and funnily enough, my sister as well. She goes, you know what? We grew up and I watched you, and you stuck it out for many years. You just kept at it, and that's one of the things that I admired about you, your perseverance and your focus when you do something, even though I could see that you were failing, 1 year and it's okay the next, and then you fail again. Sister, I love it to bits. Is there something that I would change? No. But I probably would have. I probably would have moved overseas in my younger years, and tried it out there. But then again, the things that I would have done here, that I've done here would have happened, or all that sort of thing. But
It's that curiosity. It's like, what would have happened if you went to the seasons?
I am. And I had this conversation with Michelle all the time, and I go, you know, if I had done this, maybe it would have been a different outcome. And she goes, you know what? Don't even entertain it, because you mustn't have regrets, or you mustn't think that way, because you made that decision at the time. And you made the right decision at the time with the information you were given, with the circumstances that you were in, and I don't know, emotional position you were at, and financial position you were at as well. It was the right decision at the time. That you shouldn't regret making that decision, because it was the right decision at the time. And I thought, wow, that does make sense. Because if I had gone overseas, maybe I wasn't in the right maturity. I wasn't in the right frame of mind at the time, or I didn't have an extra $10,000 to actually make it out there. So, thank you, Michelle. I probably wouldn't change anything, but I would entertain the thought.
That's really nice to think of
Yes.
it that way. From being born in the Philippines and growing up here in Australia, he's had a very interesting life. His father was a farmer and his mother was a teacher. One who wasn't very fond of teaching him or improving on his singing skills. However, he still persevered and was resilient in improving his craft. And from there, he's had a very thrilling journey in the creative industry and theatre, and he's had this light bulb moment that he refers to, realizing that it was his passion and it was what he wanted to do for the rest of his life, because it's what fulfilled his heart. And that's what I really loved the most about hearing his story today. I hope that you guys learned a lot from Marcus Rivera today, and I hope you guys find your own tribe too, so that you can live life according to your vision and your reality. Remember that this is Behind the Lens. The glitz and glam is the fame, but it's the work backstage that makes the game. I will see you guys next time.